Dennis Prager Show coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota, state where nice people elect disgusting people. That should be their motto. We are nice and we elect fools, which shows you that there is no relationship between nice and wise. None. Zero. There are non-nice people who are wise, and there are nice people with no wisdom. That was the confusion with regard to our previous president. Right? President Trump was not deemed as an individually nice person. I have no comment on it. I am not capable of assessing him personally. I probably can't assess most people I don't know well personally, unless it's obvious that they have done terrible things in their personal life. Now, you could say, well, he has, but then if that's the case, he is with many presidents with regard to infidelity, which is a separate issue. In any event, he did not act nice often. That is absolutely correct. However, he was a great president. That is, and since I elect presidents, not nice people, that's all that mattered to me. To people who confuse nice with capability, he was a bad president. They say that Joe Biden is nice. I have no way of assessing it. I think he's the biggest crook to ever be president, objectively speaking. But he might be nice. However, he is a completely destructive president. People don't know how to assess leaders. They really don't. Do I know if Winston Churchill was personally nice? Frankly, I don't care. It's for God to judge. I can only say that he was the right man at the right time to fight the greatest evil of the time. So that's just reflections on Minnesota nice, which exists. Here's another reflection on something local. I went for a Starbucks coffee prior to my show. I'm still fasting. I fast every day virtually, usually 15, sometimes 17 hours. I love it. It has it only has a positive effect on me, but I do drink coffee during that time. And so I went to the Starbucks near the station here, AM 1280 The Patriot, celebrating its 20th anniversary tonight. Charlie Kirk and I are the speakers. And it's a great honor. I love the station. It's one of my favorite ever. Anyway, I went to the Starbucks, and I see a sign as you enter, new hours. Whatever, I don't know, 7 a.m., whatever they open, until 2:30 p.m. And I thought, 2:30 p.m.? You close? So I asked the young woman who took my order, whose face I could not see, because they believe in voodoo here in Minnesota, as they do in California. And the masks are as effective as voodoo. Voodoo may be more effective. I have to look into that, actually. And so I asked her, why do you close at 2:30? What were your old hours? Obviously, I don't know. She said 9 p.m. I said, you have gone from closing at 9 p.m. to closing at 2:30 p.m.? She said, that's right. I said, why? I said, we can't get help. Can't get help. The immediate reason that came to my mind was the government is paying people more money than they can get by working, which, to say the word, is very destructive. To say the least, is very destructive. Work is a very good thing, tremendously good thing. People staying at home is not a good thing. Staying home without work is a really bad thing. Okay. I mean, not everybody's staying at home. People who stay at home to make a family are doing the best thing a human being could do. But I hope the context made it clear. Okay, all. Welcome to the show. Dennis Prager here in Minneapolis. How long did it take you guys to sell out the event tonight, the anniversary? 9 days? Should have charged double. Should have. It's a pleasure to help you guys out. I love the station. I really do. Terrific people. It is a fascinating question, isn't it, though, how nice people elect not it's completely destructive people? I'm sure there are a lot of nice people in Seattle and Chicago, and look at who they elect. People who are utterly destructive. People who are bad, actually. Listen to this story, my friends. It's almost unbelievable. UC, that's University of California Health, denies kidney transplant to unvaccinated woman in stage 5 renal failure. I told you, folks, that there are a lot of not nice, mean fools. They're bad on both counts. They're personally mean, and they are fools. The medical world has a very large number of truly mean human beings. What hospitals did in not allowing people to visit their dying parents, I will never forgive them until I die. I would have busted the doors down and been arrested. I'm just letting you know. They're lucky that a loved one of mine was not in one of their hospitals. It would not have been conceivable that I would not have busted a door. I mean, my adrenaline runs as I tell this to you. The scum that prevented people from visiting their dying relatives in the name of health. I tell you, the wisdom of the ancients, some of you have heard me say this, some of you have not. The Talmud is the second holiest work in Judaism. It's written about 1,800 years ago, and there's an amazing quote in there. The best doctors go to hell. Almost 2,000 years ago. In those days, the doctors were useless, obviously. Today, they're useful, but a lot of them are lowlifes. The ones who, for example, because the New York Times told them not to use ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine or any other therapeutic, deny that to people with COVID, who then go into the hospital and often get terrible treatment. End up on ventilators, which either don't work or on rare occasions work, but are a death warrant when they could have been saved by a therapeutic. But this is really a new low for the medical profession, and these arrogant. I don't know. Is bastard one of the words I can't say? I don't think it is. It is? Yeah, you can. They're arrogant bastards. A lot of the people in the medical profession very rarely use the word, by the way, even privately. Oh, Colorado woman with stage 5 renal failure is scrambling to find a new hospital to perform a kidney transplant after a health system in the state. Oh, sorry, UC is not University of California, University of Colorado. My mistake here. It's Colorado. It doesn't matter, but I have to be accurate. I'm sure University of California hospitals would have done the same thing. Denied the transplant due to her and her donor being unvaccinated. Wow. Do you understand that? You're not, they can't, I don't even understand it. So let's say you're not vaccinated, you can't donate a kidney to save a human life. It is worse to be unvaccinated than it is to deny a person a kidney? Do you know how morally sick you have to be to say that? I would even say medically ignorant. These are your hospitals and doctors. I never spoke this way. I've had numerous surgeries on my back, and they've all been successful. I've only had gratitude, and they've done a great job, and I'm grateful for it. But I guess I have to juggle two facts. Hospitals have saved my life, and they're killing other people. That's it. Here I am, willing to be a direct donor to her. It does not affect any other patient on the transplant list. Jamie Faulkner, Leilani Lutali's kidney donor, told CBS 4, "How can I sit here and allow them to murder my friend when I've got a perfectly good kidney and can save her life?" Oh, my God. Lutali said she received a letter from Colorado Health System, UC Health, at the end of September, explaining that she and Faulkner have 30 days to begin the vaccine process. They would be removed from the kidney transplant list if they refuse the shots. I said, I'll sign a medical waiver. I have to sign a waiver anyway for the transplant itself. Releasing them from anything that could possibly go wrong, said Lutali. It's surgery. It's invasive. I sign a waiver for my life. I'm not sure why I can't sign a waiver for the COVID shot. We'll be back in a moment.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
You can stop an earthquake. Doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do. I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone.
Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show, and I'd like to remind you, I'd like you to take a moment right now, go to my website, and click on the Alliance Defending Freedom banner. You know, for years after year, you, my listeners, were the biggest donors to the charities that I have endorsed, like the Salvation Army and PragerU. And I'd like to maintain that distinction among my listeners. I only ask you to donate to places I believe in. By the way, unfortunately, Salvation Army has gone woke. It's a very sad development, worth talking about another time. However, we have to battle a great many cases in court. The ADF does it for free. All the freedom cases. So please click on the banner or call now 855-649-2020. 855-649-2020. Alliance Defending Freedom. The lawyers do it pro bono for the clients, but somebody's got to pay the lawyers. That's us. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, my wife, who is an expert on the coronavirus issue, writes to me the following. Sounds like that kidney donor doesn't understand that the hospital's issue is the hospital isn't afraid that something will go wrong with coronavirus in the donor or the kidney recipient. They're afraid that the donor or the recipient will give some of the vaccinated hospital staff coronavirus. What we're seeing now is a tacit admission by these people that the vaccines don't work. Seems to be a lot of people out there who believe the only way they're going to be safe is if everyone is vaccinated. Somehow then the vaccines will be effective, but they require 100% participation, which they'll never get, obviously. The New Zealand has learned that 100%. Is totalitarian. It just is that way, my friends. New Zealand has locked down essentially its entire country. Battling Delta, New Zealand, New York Times abandons its zero COVID ambitions. The country is changing course 7 weeks into a lockdown that has failed to end the outbreak and tested the patience of many residents. For a year and a half, New Zealand has pursued a strategy of COVID zero, closing its borders and quickly enforcing lockdowns to keep the coronavirus in check, a policy it maintained even as other Asia-Pacific countries transitioned to coexisting with the viral threat. On Monday, New Zealand gave in. That's 2 days ago. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern acknowledged an end to the elimination strategy 7 weeks into a lockdown that has failed to halt an outbreak of the Delta variant, announcing that restrictions would be gradually lifted in Auckland, the country's largest city. We're transitioning from our current strategy into a new way of doing things. By the way, Sean, if you can find this Prime Minister of New Zealand's comments that all truth comes from the government, I'd like to play that again. We're transitioning from our current strategy into a new way of doing things, Ms. Ardern told reporters. With Delta, the return to zero is incredibly difficult, and our restrictions alone are not enough to achieve that quickly. In fact, for this outbreak, it's clear that long periods of heavy restrictions has not got us to zero cases. So the ruining of lives, did you see, Tucker Carlson showed a chart about kids' deaths and where COVID is pretty much at the bottom. There are more suicides among young people than there are COVID deaths. And yet we want them vaccinated. I'm telling you, we're living in a very sick time because leaders are despicable. Almost every leader in almost every country, almost every institution has bad people or foolish people, which is the same thing, by the way. Bad and foolish are pretty much synonymous. You can't be a good fool. It's just the way it is. You can be a nice fool, but you can't be a good fool. The corruption, the moral and intellectual corruption of our institutions in this world, the United Nations has always been a force for bad. It does some good. Some of the agencies do good. Tell me what it did. Like the peacekeepers in Rwanda. A true genocide there, which half of you probably don't even know about. You know that you know that Washington had slaves, but you don't know about Rwanda. Rwanda, the massacre, I think 700,000 in a few weeks. It was at Nazi Holocaust rates. This I got from a man who spent his life fighting Nazi war criminals. And the UN just dissipated as soon as the attacks started. Anyway, what institution? Tell me the institutions in the world that have done good. The EU? That's why Britain left. They don't want to be told by Brussels how to micromanage their life. The world is divided between those who wish to control others and those who do not. That's really what it is about. See, if you lock down every single person in a society like they're trying in various, the major states of Australia and New Zealand, you will achieve a small death rate, but you have to keep it up forever. That's what New Zealand has just acknowledged. You either keep people in their homes forever, or you will have some people die of it, especially if you don't use therapeutics. New York Times had another article that ivermectin is really just a horse dewormer, because the New York Times lies.
Trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
But Biden is taking a hit, and Democrats are trying to stay clear from him. The caller in the last hour said, where's Kamala? Kamala is doing her best to stay clear of Joe Biden. I mean, her polls stink, but combined, the both of them combined, I guess it's extra stinky together because both of them stink. And the funny thing is, her polls are worse than his, and she wants to be nowhere near this cat. But people are finding out that this Build Back Better thing is a socialist agenda, and the $3.5 trillion partisan wish list that the Democrats are wanting is starting to turn people off, because people are starting to realize that the economic pain is going to be felt at home. Average everyday Americans sitting around their dinner table are going to feel that pain. Overall, the poll found that Biden's net approval average is -7. That means 44% are approving of his job as the president, and 51% disapprove. So this is a major slide. A generic Republican on the ballot at this time would lead in all 7 districts, going up against the Democrat incumbents by 6 percentage points on average. So, Carl, the elections are so far away. Why are you worried about this, or why are you talking about this now? Polls don't matter. Polls do matter to Democrats. Unfortunately, I feel like Republicans are starting to do the same. Republicans have an opportunity of a lifetime, in my opinion, to kick Biden while he's down, and you have Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy seems to have backtracked slightly, but Mitch McConnell talking about they don't want to impeach. Why not? Why not?
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
There's about 57 Muslim states in the world. There's one Jewish state.
The massive ingathering of Jews in the last 150 years back to the land is absolutely unprecedented.
They say that there's no greater sign of redemption coming than the Jewish people returning to the hills of Judea.
As a Christian, I've always supported Israel's claim to the Holy Land. To me, the Palestinians were just getting in the way of God's plan.
300,000 Palestinians are unemployed.
In spite of all the years of conflict, there's hope here, if you know where to look for it.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward.
When Wright came in this morning, he wants to fight you.
No one expected this out of him.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Organ transplants denied to unvaxxed. Yeah, that's what I've been talking to you about. So this is now not, it's not only in, well, yeah, it is this, the Colorado story. I got another version of it here. Washington Post. The coercion of people into getting vaccines so that even healthcare people who know a lot about science, like nurses, and they're losing their income and they're not even allowed to get unemployment insurance. I mean, there's a level of cruelty that is sort of unprecedented toward good people. People who are cruel to the bad will be nice to the cruel. It's another Talmudic statement from the past in this country, or not in this country, from the past. And that is exactly what is happening. The cruelty to the people who help people but who won't get a vaccine, won't get vaccinated usually for extremely good reasons, by the way. These people are not stupid. These people are not, quote, anti-vaxxers. However, I am anti-coercion in this way. I am. And I'm more adamant about not getting a vaccine than ever because of the scummy tactics used by the government, which doesn't seem to bother most people who are vaccinated. They're thrilled to see nurses fired. They're thrilled to see teachers fired. They are, because they hate the unvaccinated. It's fascinating. When it gets political, the left does not hate the murderers in the inner city. They ignore them. They don't register on the left's radar. But they hate people who are not vaccinated, because everything about the left is sick. It's a very sick, disturbed world, and they're in charge. I mean, every day I bring to you more examples. Almost every week. Well, so I would say, to be precise, at least twice a month for years, I've brought to you another race hoax of some black person who painted a swastika or brought a noose or used the N-word on a dormitory door. I don't even remember the last time it was actually a white kid who did it at a university. In every case I am aware of, I'm not saying it's the only ones, but every case I am aware of, it was a black doing it in order to show how bad racism is, because racism is so minuscule in this country, except on the part of the left who have contempt for blacks, that blacks have to make up racist incidents. Did Jews have to make up anti-Semitic incidents in 1930s Germany? No, because it was really anti-Semitic. Blacks didn't have to make up anti-black things in Jim Crow era, did they? Because it was prevalent anti-black racism. It's made up today because it's so rare. Basically, most whites don't give a damn if you're black, which is exactly how it should be. Most blacks don't give a damn if you're white, which is exactly how it should be. That's the ideal. Why do I give a damn if you're black? Why is that more important than your eye color or shoe color? Actually, shoe color is more important. Your shoes should match the clothing. MIT cancels science lecture by professor, a DEI critic, diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology has canceled a prestigious guest lecture after a group of scholars, alumni, and activists lambasted the institution for inviting a speaker who has criticized diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dorian Abbott, an associate professor of geophysical sciences at the University of Chicago, was scheduled to give the John Carlson Lecture in the Department of Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences at MIT on October 21st. But Abbott was told recently by Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Science top leadership the event was scrapped. EAPS, that's the group I just mentioned, at MIT is a great department full of excellent scientists whom I admire and respect, Abbott tweeted. The department chair ultimately made the decision to cancel my Carlson lecture. The chair is a good person, but made a bad decision under pressure in this case. Wow. Scholars. I love when they put that in. What was that, Sean? I have Relief Factor with me in Minnesota. And the reason is here. In fact, listen to the bag. That is a Relief Factor bag, ladies and gentlemen, just for the record. Stuff is magic. Try it for 3 weeks for $20. Doesn't work, cancel your order, because they tell you it'll either work in 3 weeks or won't. How's that for honesty? If you have joint or muscle pain and don't try it, I am puzzled, to be perfectly honest. 800-500-8384, 800-500-8384, or ReliefFactor.com.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year! As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you by the Constitution are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
The only time you can come to Christ, when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
About the corruption and the cowardice of the entire university world, virtually the entire, is very disconcerting. All the education has produced cowards. MIT is the latest example. They canceled a distinguished scientist's lecture because he's against diversity, equity, inclusion departments. Yep. Department Chair Rob van der Hilst did not immediately respond to a request for comment from the College Fix, which is where I'm reading this from. Kimberly Allen, a spokesman for MIT, told the Fix via email the lecture, quote, will not be held this year at the discretion of the department. That's helpful. That's exactly what we knew. Allen said Abbott may still present his work informally to his colleagues at MIT at a future date. Abbott said he does not want people to go after those who got a speech canceled. I don't know. Well, I'm sorry, Professor Abbott. I am. If you don't fight bad people, weak and bad are also synonymous. Sure, these are sweet people in many cases, fine neighbors, good parents, all that stuff. You know how many people like that have done harm in societies? Cowardice always leads to evil. I forgive the activists who led the campaign against me. God, he sounds like Christ. Right? I mean, it's a Christ-like thing. He forgives them. Why does he forgive them? By the way, it's an interesting question. Would Jesus have forgiven them? You have canceled free speech at MIT, and I forgive you? I don't think Jesus would have. But it's an interesting question. Because the harm, yes, I know Jesus on the cross, of course. I'm well aware. Forgive them, Father, they know not what they do. But they were hurting him. The people who canceled this professor's lecture are hurting the country. So it is a difference. I forgive the activists who led the campaign against me. Please do not attack them personally, he tweeted. They are fish swimming in a sea of moral confusion. Yes, but Professor, moral confusion is precisely a euphemism for evil. Isn't all evil moral confusion? The College Fix previously covered Abbott's concerns regarding the DEI, Diversity, Equity, Inclusion movement in higher education. Quote, what concerns me is that recently we have been trying to fix bias problems by building new biases into selection processes, Abbott has said, warning against the, quote, consequences of treating human beings primarily as members of groups rather than as individuals worthy of dignity and respect. For that, the man has his lecture canceled at MIT. For these publicly shared beliefs, an effort was launched last year to get him terminated. Do you understand that the people who, all of them are on the left, the people on the left are destroying everything that is noble and virtuous in the Western world, indeed in the world? If you don't understand it, it is because you don't want to. Because once you do, a lot of things happen in your life. You have to confront it or have a guilty conscience for not confronting the left. And even worse, you have to acknowledge that conservatives are right in their loathing of the left. And it's not possible for many liberals to acknowledge that the right might be right. For these publicly shared beliefs, an effort was launched last year to get him terminated. But the University of Chicago, considered the best university in the country for free speech, refused to fire Abbott. Fast forward to August 2021, when Abbott co-authored a column in Newsweek headlined The Diversity Problem on Campus. DEI, Diversity and Inclusion, violates the ethical and legal principle of equal treatment. It entails treating people as members of a group rather than as individuals, repeating the mistake that made possible the atrocities of the 20th century, Abbott wrote. That's right. You're not allowed to say Nazi anymore. But I will. Maybe because I'm a Jew, I'm allowed to. But that's exactly, the Nazis did not see Jews as individuals, correct? The Soviets did not see people as individuals. They were members of classes. White racists in American history did not see blacks as individuals. They saw them as members of a race. In other words, every time a human being is reduced to being a member of a race, not elevated to being an individual, evil happens. The left is the current expression of that evil. You are not you. You are a black. You are a white. You are not you. There is no you there. And you're proud of the fact, or relatives of yours are proud of the fact that they hold a vision of the human being that only leads to atrocity? This guy's a good guy, Abbott. Abbott proposed an alternative framework called merit, fairness, and equality, which would treat applicants, quote, as individuals and evaluated through a rigorous and unbiased process based on their merit and qualifications alone. Wow. The column raised the ire of higher education DEI proponents who cited it beginning around September 22 as they decried Abbott for the Carlson lecture. A new Twitter mob composed primarily of students, postdoc, and recent alumni formed to demand that I be uninvited. Abbott told the College Fix, I think the proximate trigger was that the department announced that I would be the Carlson lecturer in an email. That's quite something. The episode has been denounced by Princeton University professor Robert George. Robert George does the most recent PragerU video. The Princeton University professor. One of the few who believes in free speech.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
Well, you were right, and it took 11 days for the Taliban to take over Afghanistan. Have you seen some of the images coming out of Afghanistan, by the way? They're real pleasant. Bodies being hung from overpasses, people being executed in the street, an Afghan soldier led out into the street and just shot dead. The Taliban walking around with these giant whips and they're hitting women over the backs. Here's Secretary Austin also contradicting Biden and exposing Joe Biden for the bald-faced lie, the bald-faced lie he told the American people.
It's a simple question, Secretary Austin. He said no senior military leader advised him to leave a small troop presence behind. Is that true or not? Did these officer and General Miller's recommendations get to the president personally?
Their input was received by the president and considered by the president for sure. In terms of what they specifically recommended, Senator, as they just said, they're not going to provide what they recommended in confidence.
What a crap storm. What a crap show. Senator Josh Hawley put it best. Thank goodness for people like Josh Hawley and Marsha Blackburn and Dan Sullivan. The Republicans were certainly on fire yesterday in holding these failed commanders to have some sort of at least a public accountability.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I'm Dennis Prager. Our neighbor to the north is becoming increasingly, as are we, by the way, a police state. Here's an example. Not using people's preferred pronouns is a human rights offense, a Canadian tribunal ruled while settling an employment dispute. The British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal ruled in favor of Jesse Nelson, a British Columbia restaurant server, no longer, I don't know what's wrong with waiter, Oh, I know what's wrong. Waiter implies male and waitress implies female, and we can't possibly use that any longer. Who is biologically female but identifies as non-binary. That's right. It's not the same at all as transgender. Transgender is where you change your gender. But non-binary is there is no gender. That's by far the most egregious attack on the dignity of the human species, which is divided into male and female. The transgender does not deny that the human species is male or female. They deny that they are that their biology is what defines their sex, or their gender as they call it. But the non-binary deny that there's even male and female. They're neither. So the person needed to be called they. And somebody at work refused to refer to the person as they and them. And was penalized. And it's now a human rights offense. It's against the law, at least in British Columbia. You must say them. That is what started Jordan Peterson in getting into the public life, when Ottawa wanted to do the same thing, dictate how you speak. No, I think it was Ottawa. I don't think it was just the University of Toronto. Either way, it's not of course relevant, but that's what they're trying to do. Please now go to the ADF banner, Alliance Defending Freedom, and make a donation. You want to protect freedom, you got to help the people who are doing it. ADF banner at my website, DennisPrager.com. Thank you. Male-female hour coming up.
Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
I have to control myself, Jenna, because in the last 5 to 10 years, I think it's fair to say, empirically, that there's been an amazing shift, a sea change in American attitudes to abortion, and especially in the youth, in the under 30s, who understand, they follow the science, they understand that this is a human being inside a mother's womb. I don't want to get carried away with myself, but how important you've taught constitutional law, you're a practicing lawyer. How significant is the SCOTUS decision and the signing into effect of the new heartbeat law in Texas?
It's very significant. And even though this was simply a denial of an emergency application to stay the law, it shows that the Supreme Court is no longer reflexively protecting abortion as a so-called right. And that's what is the most important part of this decision. The Supreme Court said that they were not ruling on the merits of the issue. Of course, it will be litigated further on the merits and potentially wind its way up back to the Supreme Court. But what they're saying here is that no longer will an activist majority simply say, sorry, states, you don't have a compelling interest to protect unborn life. And so for all of us who understand actual science and who have seen the science, who see the strides that we have made in showing how heartbeats are about 5 to 6 weeks after conception.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Don't you get tired of commercials screaming at you to buy gold now with inflated promises on future values? In an unregulated industry, you need honest, real experts to give you solid advice to protect your wealth and top picks on the best coins in bullion based on real-time data and historical trends. For example, as environmental policy becomes a hot topic, one precious metal that's been significantly undervalued for years is potentially set to surge. Nick Rovich, owner of AmFed Coin and Bullion, has long recommended this precious metal. Up to 600,000 ounces of this rare metal will be needed by 2030 to produce green hydrogen. Nick is doubling down on this pick, and you should too. Call Nick at AmFed Coin and Bullion to find out more. I've been friends with Nick for years, and he's my go-to guy when it comes to coins and bullion. I trust him. He is a good and very knowledgeable man. Call Nick at 800-221-7694, 800-221-7694, AmericanFederal.com, AmericanFederal.com.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Today that not one Republican would support the budget that's coming over with a debt hike attached. They will not support a debt hike relief standing alone. Is that your position?
Absolutely. They have Democrats have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They don't want any of our involvement with all their radical spending, which we shouldn't be. And so if they want to raise the debt ceiling, they want to do it on their own. You know why? They've been very clear. They don't want to do the debt ceiling on their own because they know it's toxic. They say, well, so we want you to be part of our what we're doing here. You know, their budget in this deal, the $3.5, which is really $5.5 trillion, will take our debt to $45 trillion. Now let's look at what's happening in families right now with inflation. It's hurting our poorest families. It's hurting our families on fixed income. And the Democrats are causing all this with their spending, and they don't want to be responsible for it. They are responsible for what's going on.
And so do you think you'll keep, for example, you've got to get Senator Murkowski reelected, and I hope you do. I think she's a good, solid vote on 99% of the stuff that we vote on. Will she and any other Republican think about bolting and voting for it? Because it will hurt them. It will really hurt them if they vote for any Democratic.
I don't think any of them are going to vote for it. We have a clean continuing resolution that McConnell and Richard Shelby put together that will deal with. We're not going to do the debt ceiling. That's the Democratic responsibility. We'll keep the government open. We will help with the Afghan refugees, and we'll also help with the disaster relief for Louisiana. So ours is clean, all right? But the Democrats don't want to do it. I don't know if we'll even get a vote on it. So the Democrats might shut down government. I don't think they will, but they could decide to shut down government.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year. As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you, by the Constitution, are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Hi, everybody. This is the Male-Female Hour on the Dennis Prager Show. Every Wednesday, the second hour of my program is devoted to what I believe is the most honest talk about men and women in the American media. If there's more honest talk, let me know. Frankly, I'm fine with that. I've never thought that I had to be the only thing going on in any arena. I don't want to be the best person in the room. I'd like to strive to be, perhaps, but I don't want to be. The thought that there's nobody better is actually depressing. It's a funny thing. We ought to do that in another hour. Do you want to be? I mean, want to be is one thing, but if I found out there was another program this honest about men and women, I would be very happy about it. Okay? Let me just say that. But I don't know of any. Part of the reason is I'm very at ease talking about men and women and sexual matters in particular, which very few people are at ease talking about, let alone publicly. I got it from my father, who spoke about sex with the same ease he would talk about politics or what car he was driving. He just thought it was part of life. Let's talk about it. I got that from him. I thank him for that. Also, I'm not a man fan and I'm not a woman fan. I really am not. I always find it odd when people say, I like women. What does that mean? Or I like men. Or I like any group. I don't get it. I like whites. I like blacks. I don't get it. I don't think that way. There are great women and lousy women. There are great men and lousy men. Okay. That's the end of my introduction. The topic I want to discuss today, I raised actually earlier this week, but it's really somewhat haunting me, and I want to raise it again and see how you react and how you deal with it if you have or had a daughter. So there are actually Senate hearings with regard to Facebook, which owns Instagram. And there is a world of photos on Instagram. I don't even know if I have an Instagram account, but I know about this because I have to follow everything. Anyway, there's a world of photos of teenage girls and young women in their 20s posing scantily clad and showing off their terrific bodies. So this apparently has a terrible, toxic, that's the word in the Wall Street Journal article on this, toxic effect on so many teenage girls who then end up with a bad body image and get depressed. And they claim 6% have suicidal, as the New York Times put it, ideation. I love these words. They think about suicide because they don't think their body matches up to the bodies on Instagram, which, by the way, in most cases they don't. That's correct. So, first of all, let me just quickly review my attitude towards all of this. If you are having suicidal thoughts because your body doesn't match up to the bodies on Instagram, your issues transcend your body. Let's be honest, okay? Normal, healthy people, even feeling bad about their body in comparison to an Instagram model, do not think of killing themselves as a result, all right? There are other issues at play. Number two, the reaction in life that parents should have to their daughters who are having bad self-image, body self-image, comparing themselves to other girls on Instagram is there are a number of reactions. Number one, all through life, you will be confronted with people who have or do something better. That is the nature of life. Okay? Men confront the fact that other men are more professionally successful than they are. Right? That's true for every man on earth except for Jeff Bezos. Somebody is doing better financially than you. That is a fact of life. Somebody will always have a nicer house, a better car, more time to travel, eat at better restaurants, whatever criterion you wish to choose. There will always be that. There will always be people who are smarter than you. They just have a better brain. That is the way life works. There will always be people better looking than you, male or female. That too is the way life works. There will be, for most people, some belief, oh, wow, this woman has a terrific husband. I wish my husband were like that. I wish my wife were like that wife. Looked like her, acted like her, whatever it might be. That is the nature of life. You either let it consume you or you do not. You celebrate what you do have. That is the way in which you can have a happier life. There is one other, that is the one and most important. So, my dear daughter, please understand that is the nature of life. Yes, you will perceive, correctly or not, other girls as having better bodies than you, being prettier than you. That is correct. And then there are two other reactions I think you should have. One is, the fact is, I think you're beautiful. It's a good thing, especially for a father, to say to a daughter, you are beautiful. But there is also another thing that can be said. In addition to, listen, you have to grow up and not let this, and growing up means appreciating the fact that there will always be people who have it better, whatever the it is. But there's another one. If it really bothers you that much, work on your body. What's wrong with that? It could either spur you to get depressed or spur you to eat more healthfully, to work out more. You're 16 years old. You shouldn't be sitting around so much. Why are you watching Instagram for 3 hours when you could be taking a walk or going to the gym, let alone, learning an instrument? The case given in the Wall Street Journal began with a girl, 16, 3 hours a day on Instagram. Isn't that the issue? Whatever she's looking at on Instagram for 3 hours. So what did you do? What would you recommend be done with a daughter who is getting depressed over better bodies on Instagram? That's the male-female hour subject. And by the way, here's another one, and I especially want women to answer this. When it hit you, if it did hit you, God, there were prettier girls. There are girls with better bodies. What did you do with that? It might be helpful for people to hear women who do grapple with this, just as men grapple with the success issue. It's a very big factor in men's life. 1-8-PRAGER 776-877-243-7776. And a reminder to please help the Alliance Defending Freedom, because freedom is at risk in this country. Go to the banner now during the break, if you would, at my website, DennisPrager.com, and click on the ADF banner.
Trending now on the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Yesterday, that not one Republican would support the budget that's coming over with a debt hike attached. They will not support a debt hike relief standing alone. Is that your position?
Absolutely. Democrats have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They don't want any of our involvement with all their radical spending, which we shouldn't be. And so if they want to raise the debt ceiling, they want to do it on their own. You know why? They've been very clear. They don't want to do the debt ceiling on their own because they know it's toxic. They say, oh, we want you to be part of our what we're doing here. You know, their budget in this deal, the $3.5, which is really $5.5 trillion, will take our debt to $45 trillion. Now let's look at what's happening in families right now with inflation. It's hurting our poorest families. It's hurting our families on fixed income. And the Democrats are causing all this with their spending, and they don't want to be responsible for it. They are responsible for what's going on.
And so do you think you'll keep, for example, you've got to get Senator Murkowski reelected, and I hope you do. I think she's a good, solid vote on 99% of the stuff that we vote on. Will she and any other Republican think about bolting and voting for it? Because it will hurt them. It will really hurt them if they vote for any Democratic
package. We're going to vote for it. We have a clean continuing resolution that McConnell and Richard Shelby put together that will deal with. We're not going to do the debt ceiling. That's the Democratic responsibility. We'll keep the government open. We will help with the Afghan refugees, and we'll also help with the disaster relief for Louisiana. So ours is clean, all right? But the Democrats don't want to do it. I don't know if we'll even get a vote on it. So the Democrats might shut down government. I don't think they will, but they could decide to just shut down government.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year. As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you by the Constitution are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Male-female hour every Wednesday. I've been somewhat preoccupied with this issue because I think the country is once again entering irrational mode. Subject being the quote-unquote toxicity of Instagram photos of girls with perfect bodies and the effect on massive numbers of teenage girls in this country looking at these models on Instagram. not exactly sure why this is new. There have always been models of perfectly formed women. I mean, billboards, for example, all over any major metropolitan area featured that. Not quite certain why this is something new. It might be. I mean, maybe the ubiquity of it, maybe the staggering amounts of time that girls spend on Instagram looking at this. But anyway, I've offered the notion that it's a great way to educate your daughter about life, that you have to be strong and you can't let yourself get depressed because others have something better than you. It will always be that way. How many parents who have had even a normal kid have then met at some gathering kids the age of their kid and think, oh, those kids are so better behaved than mine. My parents thought that about me. My God, there are other kids. They're doing homework. Dennis doesn't. My poor parents had to go through a very difficult period, namely 12 years. But anyway, it's the truth. How many people have thought, oh, they have better kids, better spouse, better parents, better anything? So it's an educational opportunity for parents to teach their daughter to get strong and grow up. But feminism teaches girls to be weak. We have the weakest generation of women in American history right now. Feminism has weakened an entire group of people, those who bought into it. That's why they're so hypersensitive to anything that might trigger them. Even hearing something sexual, not even addressed to them, just hearing. That is a weak woman. That is what is produced at college. Be weak. By the way, the weak men are also produced at college. It's not happily in some ways. It's bad in some ways and happy in others. Men are not going to college. Not nearly in the numbers women are anyway. So what do you suggest here be done with your daughter, or what did you do, and what did you do as a woman when you have had to deal with the issue of thinking there are prettier women with better bodies? What did you do not to get depressed, let alone suicidal? These are real issues. Okay, Jennifer, Malvern, Pennsylvania, the famous Jennifer of Malvern.
Hi, Mr. Prager. Thank you so much for taking my call. I've called you before, and thank you for all you do. 3 things really fast. First, limit the time with technology. My oldest daughter is a preteen. I switched all 3 of my kids, which is another story related to COVID and all things you've talked about, but I switched to a very small, private, Catholic, classical arts, liberal arts education this year, and no technology in school, very limited. My kids are happier and more joyful. They have more energy, so that's 1. 2 is you fill them with good things. You have them do activities where they can feel that they've merited good things and they can achieve good things, and that they are responsible for finding that happiness. And number 3, everybody, every woman goes through this. That these children, these young teens, these young people are not alone in feeling down about their bodies. We go through it. Everyone does. So
that's my point. That's it. That's why men can massively help. A father can truly help a daughter in this arena, but the woman is the one who can empathize. Hey, I went through this too. Every woman does.
Absolutely. Yes, it's not unique to you. You need to get out of your head, go do something productive. Life is good. Go find joy.
I think we're in sync. I think the famous Jennifer of Malvern and Dennis of Minneapolis think similarly. Yep. All right. Victoria, Los Angeles, California. Hello.
Yes, hi, Dennis. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Yes, so with my daughter, she started having a lot of anxiety attacks last year because of COVID and staying home. She's 13 and a half years old, and I signed her up for the hip-hop class because that's something she likes to do. She enjoys dancing, and I was hoping to find some friends, but because of the COVID in Los Angeles, everything was closed, so she was the only one in the class. The other people were in the Zoom. I was hoping she would make some friends, too, through that. But she did go through some dance classes. She enjoyed it a little bit, and she danced, so it actually kept her in shape. And this year I signed her for Taekwondo, and I believe that it's not only that keeps them in shape, which makes them feel better about their body, but at the same time, mentally, it develops them and making them stronger. And plus, it's a self-defense, so with this crazy world, at least if anything would happen, she would be able to take care of herself. So I think it's really helping her to feel better about herself. And it actually, she spends less time on the phone watching Instagram or TikTok. By at least
So,
that,
I love that. I love what you did. By the way, where are you from originally?
I am from Ukraine.
Right. So it's not only is your English excellent, but it's way faster than mine.
Thank you so much.
How do you speak a language that is not your native language that fast?
I don't know. It's probably, I have a good ear for the music. So she actually plays piano too. That's another thing I signed her up. So I
yes, that's it.
The better it is for them.
So wait, just tell me, what was the martial arts class? I didn't catch the name. Not of not the name of the company.
So we have it's at Soneca Martial Arts, and it's here in Los Angeles and in Santa Monica and Franklin.
Right.
And
all right. Martial arts, whatever the martial. That's a great idea. So it combines the developing of your own body with taking time to do something and learning how to defend yourself. What could be better than that? 1-8-Prager-776, male-female hour.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knocked these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEAls. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Come to Christ when the Spirit of God comes.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
Our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO. Put in an economic growth plan called 999.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery. There is a whole big cottage industry for racism. If racism went away, a lot of people would be unemployed.
The mob during the Minneapolis riots following the death of George Floyd. A bunch of white thugs, frankly, burning down the city's traditional black and Asian business districts.
They're racist, racist, racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I am in Minnesota for the great 20th anniversary of AM 1280, The Patriot. And be speaking tonight. You should know that this big event, which is sold out, is being streamed live at salemnow.com. salemnow.com. These are very fun events. And Charlie Kirk is the other speaker. Then, after we both speak, we're wrestling. Charlie Kirk and I will be wrestling. So that's if that doesn't get you to tune in at salemnow.com, yeah, of course you should feel sorry for Charlie. What, are you kidding? But I won't be a bully. Okay, let me make that clear. All right, we're talking about this whole issue of the toxicity, as they say, of girls seeing these Instagram girls that are perfectly abbed, great bodies, pretty, etc. As one of my female callers said, every woman in history has gone through, there are prettier women, there are better looking, there are better bodies, etc. So you teach your girl that is normal. You don't beat yourself up about it. Instead of attacking Instagram, can't stand them for a lot of reasons, but nevertheless, that's not the issue. How you handle the issue is the issue. Okay, everybody. All right. Let's see. Janine in Greenville, South Carolina. Hello, Janine.
Hi, Dennis. How are you?
Real well, thank you.
I love your show. I read your books. I really enjoy it. But you had a caller yesterday. I am 53 years old, and I grew up with, the Cheryl Teagues and Christy Brinkley's. And I'm from the south side of Chicago, so I'm like a big-boned, dark girl. And we had that to kind of compete with. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed supermodel was in back then. And I feel like now at my age, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in. But you know, young girls are spending too much time on their phone, and we had the same comparison, but we were out in real life, you know, either looking at a magazine or out at the beach or out with our friends. So I agree with you. Instagram in itself is unhealthy for so many other reasons. But the whole comparison thing is that, you know, I used to look at Teen Vogue and do these clamshells thinking that if I did enough of them, I would, you know, be a size 4 and my hair would turn blonde and my eyes would turn blue and, you know, my teeth would get white. And, you know, it just doesn't work that way. You know, plus I
right, and as I said, everybody has to deal with it in some arena.
Yes.
That's the way it works. So I'm curious, did you get married?
I did. I was married for a short time. I'm divorced now. And I think a part of my marriage is that I had very low self-esteem, you know, from body issues and that sort of thing. And it's been a long road where I've really learned to love myself and take care of myself. And as far as physique, like for me, posture is huge. And, you know, so many things that are much deeper than appearance, like being fit, eating clean, you know, being able to
being fit is a big part of appearance. Being fit is appearance. It's also health. Anyway, you sound like you've worked it through, and I bless you for it. I'd like you all to watch. It might be worth showing your daughters. I did a video called "He Wants You," that's what it's called. He Wants You. It's millions of views. Women think that the man in their life is comparing them the whole time to other women. And it was based on a fascinating article in some British newspaper about how vacations that involved the beach often had tension in them because of all the bikini wearing women at the beach. And their husband, even on a honeymoon, and their husband looking at them, which is as natural to a man as eating is to the human species. And her thinking, oh, he prefers them. And so it's a very important video. He Wants You at prageru.com. I have with me Relief Factor because I take it regularly. It's phenomenal. It's an anti-inflammatory that does not have any of the effects of ibuprofen. In other words, the bad side effects. So if you are suffering from any joint or muscle pain, I ask you to try it for 3 weeks. Their statement is you'll know in 3 weeks whether it works. So there's a 3-week tryout process for $19.95 plus shipping. 800-500-8384, relieffactor.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border. Human trafficking, God.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I'm Dennis Prager, and hello, do you? Do you? Did I say do you? Hello, do you? Or to you? Male-female hour on the subject of the quote-unquote toxicity of Instagram models on teenage girls. And there were actual Senate hearings on it. Instead of teaching girls how to deal with it, we're having Senate hearings on the toxicity of Instagram, further weakening of the female gender or sex, as it should be called in the United States. Instead of teaching girls how to deal with something every woman in history has had to deal with, the issue of thinking other girls are better looking than they, or the women, instead of teaching them how to deal with that, teaching them how to take care of themselves and perhaps even improve their shape, the villain is Instagram, which may well be a villain. But anyway, I've talked about this. I raised it for the male-female hour to see how you deal with it as a woman and or as a parent of a girl. Okay, let's see. Scoop.
Hello, Dennis.
Hi-oh. What was your given name? Thank you. What's your given name?
Tim. Tim, but I live in Columbus, so I'm kind of ashamed of telling people where I live at now. So.
Yes, of course.
Since it's a bad name, Columbus.
Right, I know. I don't know. I'm amazed that they haven't changed it to indigenous.
Well, they are. They're calling it C-Bus now. That's our new name, C-Bus, and everything's short in the news. It's horrible. It's horrible. I hate it. So.
You're kidding. I didn't know that. Really? C-Bus?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, look up C-Bus. Yeah.
All right, so
bad.
Scoop and C-Bus. Take it away.
A couple things. Well, the old queen from Snow White, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest? She was pretty, and she's always worried about someone looking pretty. And on Gilligan's Island, everybody thought Ginger was hot, but who got the most letters? Mary Ann, the girl next door. So, girls need to ease up sometimes,
That's good.
You don't have to be gorgeous.
Yep. Correct. That's right. Well, great. Thank you very much. Pleasure to hear from you. That was very good. And both examples are excellent. Okay, let's see. Don, Birmingham, Alabama. Hello.
Hi, Dennis. I would say to my daughter, you can respond to this in one of three ways. You can either envy, you can covet, or you can extol. And should you choose the right response, which is to extol, you're actually affirming God's given diversity and the beauty thereof, and would more apt to be seeking to emulate it rather than to hate it.
Okay. There you go. I mean, what else are you going to say? There are other things. Again, I think a father should tell a girl that she's beautiful, but also, you want to look better. That's a good thing. It is a good thing for a girl to want to be attractive. What is wrong with that? It's a good thing for a guy to want to be attractive, I might add. But it is more important for girls to be attractive because if you want to get married, and every girl should want to get married, in my opinion. And it is amazing that that's an even controversial statement today, that every girl should want to get married. It's part of the sickness of our age, that it is controversial. So in the real world, as opposed to the academic world, which is a fake world, being attractive broadens your choices. It gives you more of a choice among men. That is just a fact. And to deny that fact is to hurt the people whom you're trying to help. It helps to be attractive in attracting a man. Helps to be attractive in attracting a woman, but there are more important things in what attracts women. By the way, that's not the only thing that attracts a man, obviously. Once he gets to know you, it's a very big help if you're smart and if you're lively and if you have a great personality and if you're kind. All of that is very, very important. But the initial issue is attraction. The fact that I have to say such things on a national radio show often strikes me as itself indicative of the age in which we live. I said, I'm sure 30 years ago, this is not new. I said often, I can't believe that I'm paid well to say the obvious. That's a perfect example. Kristen in Fremont, Texas. Hello.
Hi, it's great to speak with you. I admire you, and I'm so grateful that you share your wisdom with us each day.
That's very sweet. Thank you.
The way that I handle with I have two daughters, 12 and 16. My 12-year-old is not allowed to have a phone. They're not allowed to have phones until they're 13 years old. And whenever, with my 16-year-old, it is required that she not only limit it, but she also I have to have access to her account so I can see what she's looking at, so I know what's going on.
Good. That's right. That's the way it should be. You're on top of things. Your daughter's lucky. Fathers also have a big role to play in this, as I have explained to you on so many occasions. All right. I want you to please do something really good for this country right now, and that is contribute to ADF, the Alliance Defending Freedom. They supply the lawyers at no cost to people with freedom of religion and freedom issues generally. They're the most successful group doing this in the United States. It's sort of the answer to the ACLU. The ACLU has a vast budget. ADF does not come close to the ACLU budget. You can make a difference, and I don't know why you wouldn't. So please, right now, go to my website, click on the ADF banner, or just call now 855-649-2020, 855-649-2020, or the banner at DennisPrager.com.
trending now on The Larry Elder Show.
Good. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
I'm a green card holder, have been for 20 years.
Thank you. From where?
When I first, from South Africa.
Excellent. Thank you.
When I came into this country, I had to have blood tests to see that I didn't have syphilis, gonorrhea, HIV. I had to show all kinds of vaccinations. I had to show means to be able to support myself, et cetera, et cetera. So my point being is that the law is not being upheld as we understand it. And so I don't understand how they are circumnavigating the law again. I mean, obviously allowing these people into the country in the first place without proper vetting, etc., is one of the ways. But I mean, the laws are written for legal immigration. There are methods and ways of doing it. They say the system is broken, but it's not broken. It functions.
Greg, I am deeply in your debt. Stay where you are because I've got a couple of questions for you, but just an addendum to your magnificent remarks. The system is not broken. We totally have a system that is set up to work if the laws that are on the books will only be enforced. But that's a huge if, and they are being intentionally ignored. So 20 years you've been here, right? And as someone who's actually followed the law, share with me a couple of minutes of your experience on whether it was too easy, too hard, or just right.
I think it was just right.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God flows.
You ever thought of going to seminary?
Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos. ¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Talked about already, but addressing now for the first time on the Male-Female Hour. It's really big in the country, to the point of Senate hearings on how toxic Instagram photos of these young female perfect bodies, quote unquote, the effect on kids. So again, my position is that is all of life. Every woman in history has had to go through this. Of there are prettier girls, comparing themselves to girls, etc., etc. A middle view is there is so much more to you than that, but it is not wise of a parent to say it doesn't matter. I don't think a daughter should be told it doesn't matter how you look. You're doing her no favors. And tell her she's beautiful, especially if a dad does. Every area of life, the human being has to work on this, and that's what I would tell a daughter. Gina in Westmont, I tell my daughter you must learn to love yourself. Yeah, although it's funny, I should do an hour on that about loving oneself. And I don't know what to say about that because I never resonated to, do I love myself? I like me. I admit it. I do. I like me. I even try to earn my respect. But I don't know about the love. So, Gina, what do you mean by that, Gina in Westmont, Illinois? When you say love yourself, what do you mean?
Well, so I have two daughters. They're both in their 20s. They're both working now. One's a therapist, one's a teacher in Illinois. My youngest, they grew up in a broken family. And so I think a lot of it really stems from the family. So their dad was in and out of their lives, an alcoholic. I got sober 11 years ago. But since then, I've always tried to teach her to, just do good, do what you like to do. Because it took me a long time to love, or to like myself, I guess. And I'm 51 years old. And so to just enjoy life, go out, meet new people, because obviously everything is like social media, online dating, online this. And it's not good. And, my youngest, she's been in treatment for eating disorders and therapists. And I tell her all the time, too, you cannot live by your past. You have to go on and move.
Well, you are so right. I wish we had more time. Beth, Sharon, Claire, Sarah, Malka, Craig, Scott as well. These are all critical. Next time or another time, I want to raise the issue of dads in girls' lives. Needs to be discussed. Stay tuned.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Yesterday, that not one Republican would support the budget that's coming over with a debt hike attached. They will not support a debt hike relief standing alone. Is that your position?
Absolutely. Democrats have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They don't want any of our involvement with all their radical spending, which we shouldn't be. And so if they want to raise the debt ceiling, they want to do it on their own. You know why? They've been very clear. They don't want to do this debt ceiling on their own because they know it's toxic. They say, we want you to be part of our what we're doing here. Their budget in this deal, the $3.5, which is really $5.5 trillion, will take our debt to $45 trillion. Now let's look at what's happening in families right now with inflation. It's hurting our poorest families. It's hurting our families on fixed income. And the Democrats are causing all this with their spending, and they don't want to be responsible for it. They are responsible for what's going on.
And so do you think you'll keep, for example, you've got to get Senator Murkowski reelected, and I hope you do. I think she's a good, solid vote on 99% of the stuff that we vote on. Will she and any other Republican think about bolting and voting for it? Because it will hurt them. It will really hurt them if they vote for any Democratic package. I don't think any of them are going to vote
for it. We have a clean continuing resolution that McConnell and Richard Shelby put together that will deal with that. We're not going to do the debt ceiling. That's the Democratic responsibility. We'll keep the government open. We will help with the Afghan refugees, and we'll also help with the disaster relief for Louisiana. So ours is clean, all right? But the Democrats don't want to do it. I don't know if we'll even get a vote on it. So the Democrats might shut down government. I don't think they will, but they could decide to shut down government.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year! As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you by the Constitution are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
You're out of your mind if you think this family can pick you up every time you fall.
Every time I take one step forward, seems like I fall.
Boy, Dylan Wright came in this morning. He wants to fight you.
Never say die, gonna give it all.
This is your opportunity to get back on your feet.
This is my time. Won't quit, I've just begun.
You gotta know who it is you're fighting for. That's the fight, Bo.
I can't believe I'm saying it, that Bo Lawson can go 10 years without a competitive fight, and here he is going toe-to-toe with the world champion. No one expected this out of him.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Mike Gallagher Show.
I also have a view that the withdrawal of those forces would lead inevitably to the collapse of the Afghan military forces and eventually the Afghan government.
Well, you were right, and it took 11 days for the Taliban to take over Afghanistan. Have you seen some of the images coming out of Afghanistan, by the way? They're real pleasant. Bodies being hung from overpasses, people being executed in the street, an Afghan soldier led out into the street and just shot dead. The Taliban walking around with these giant whips and they're hitting women over the backs. Here's Secretary Austin also contradicting Biden and exposing Joe Biden for the bald-faced lie, the bald-faced lie he told the American people.
It's a simple question, Secretary Austin. He said no senior military leader advised him to leave a small troop presence behind. Is that true or not? Did these officer and General Miller's recommendations get to the president personally?
Their input was received by the president and considered by the president for sure. In terms of what they specifically recommended, Senator, as they just said, they're not going to provide what they recommended in confidence.
What a crap storm. What a crap show. Senator Josh Hawley put it best. Thank goodness for people like Josh Hawley and Marsha Blackburn and Dan Sullivan. The Republicans were certainly on fire yesterday in holding these failed commanders to have some sort of at least a public accountability.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Dennis Prager here. One of the most important thinkers in the United States of America is David Horowitz. He is the only person I ever say I think knows more about the left than I do. There you go. That is a high compliment because I really know the left, but you know it even better. In part, not just because of your phenomenal mind and memory and studying, but you were raised in a communist family, so you have an advantage over me. Is that fair to say? Yeah, right. My parents were not communists, so I didn't know about this. I didn't know about it from birth. David Horowitz has a major, truly major book. It should be memorized by every American. It's called "I Can't Breathe: How a Racial Hoax is Killing America." And the amount of research, I'm working my way through it, and the amount of research, David, is truly remarkable, especially given you didn't have a lot of time. I mean, it's not like a life's work. Or am I wrong? Has it been a life's work looking into this for you?
Well, I was paying attention from the outset, just to take the hoax part. It occurred to me within the first week, I think, of the arrest of the officers involved in the death of George Floyd, that one of them was black and another was Asian. And I was already asking the question, how do you factor race into that equation? It was obvious from the beginning that there was no racial element to the killing of George Floyd, but that's all that people wanted to talk about, and billions of dollars in damage. There were 633 violent attacks on 220 cities on the basis that somehow George Floyd's skin color was an element here. Those of us who soldiered through the fake trial didn't hear one person one time offer any evidence that there was a racial element in the killing of, or in the death of George Floyd. And lo and behold, after this bogus trial took place, and when I say bogus, when the President of the United States announces he's praying for a guilty verdict, and you have all these people threatening jurors with violence, and then you have a whole summer of the most violent eruptions in American cities in our history, conducted by people who didn't like the idea that anyone could even think that maybe Chauvin wasn't, the officer wasn't responsible for Floyd's death. Within a week of that trial, Keith Ellison, who's the chief prosecutor for Minnesota, he's the attorney general. Before that, he had an apprenticeship as 11 years as a spokesman for the most disgusting racist in the United States, Louis Farrakhan. And then, sitting as the chair of the Democrat National Committee, which tells you all you need to know about the Democrat Party these days. He was on 60 Minutes, and nobody but me seemed to notice this. Still befuddles me. Ellison was asked by the interviewer, was there a racial element in the George Floyd case? And Ellison's answer was, we couldn't find one. Now, if they couldn't find one, you know that one didn't exist to begin with. So all those burnings, all the deaths, we actually ran a really good piece by Daniel Greenfield, estimating that 2,000 inner city blacks were the victims of homicides as a result of the defund the police campaigns that flowed out of the misrepresentation of Floyd's death. But it was misrepresented. It was a hoax from the beginning. And Candace Owens actually very bravely called this out in a blog when she said that blacks are the only people who celebrate their criminals. George Floyd was not a typical black. Whatever happened to George Floyd did not implicate all black people, saying that if you're black, you're likely to have a policeman's knee on your neck and be throttled to death. Because George Floyd was not a normal black person. He was a lifetime criminal. He had 9 jail sentences in a fairly short life. most blacks are law-abiding people. If that's news, it's probably news to leftists. Who knows? So I knew from the outset that this was a hoax. That they were drawing conclusions, and then each time. So it occurred to me, why not write a book about the 26 most prominent alleged martyrs of police murders around from the time of George Floyd's arrest. And so I actually wanted to write this book just out of Wikipedia, because everybody has access to Wikipedia. It's not that hard to get. And they ignored that evidence. But then I thought, since Wikipedia prints all its sources, it would be better to go to the sources so that I wasn't challenged factually. So everything in this book is factual. And let's take Breonna Taylor as just one cardinal example. Oprah Winfrey has disgraced herself in old age. She was the example of why America is not a racist country. Here she was the daughter of a sharecropper in Mississippi, the most racist state in the Union, during the era of segregation. She became the richest woman in America. And how did she do that? Well, the king of daytime television was Phil Donahue when Oprah appeared on the scene. And I can tell you right now that Phil Donahue did not say, let's see, I better give up my multi-million-dollar income and my dominance of daytime TV because there's a black lady, and because of her skin color, she's oppressed, and I should turn over daytime television to Oprah Winfrey. That did not happen. What happened was that by her sheer talent and appealing audiences, middle-class white women who've never been to a sensitivity training class, and she won them over. And she just blew Phil Donahue off the map. If you wanted one instance that would prove that America is so beyond racism, not that there aren't racists out there, but they're so rare that the terms, the term du jour these days is implicit racism, unintentional racism, racism by osmosis, racism by the color of your skin, not anything you think, say, or do. And we've reached the absurd state. It just shows how mass hysteria could sweep up a population and cause people to lose, any sense of reality. And it's why Hitler was elected in a democracy. He was made chancellor by popular vote. And that's why the founders of this country were so brilliant. They entrusted the people with a sovereignty to decide who gets to be president. But they instituted the system of checks and balances, which the Democrats have dedicated themselves to dismantling. The checks and the balances was to restrain the sovereign people from making idiotic mistakes, such as what's led to Black Lives Matter and the greatest urban destructions in our entire history.
All right, hold it there. This is important. If you read one thing, and there are many wonderful things written, but if you read one on the last couple of years and the whole race issue with George Floyd, this is the book. I Can't Breathe, How a Racial Hoax is Killing America. It's right, it's a racial hoax. And for the record, I mentioned Keith Ellison many times on this show. But he's right, very few people have, as acknowledging there was no racist element to the George Floyd death.
trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Yesterday that not one Republican would support the budget that's coming over with a debt hike attached. They will not support a debt hike relief standing alone. Is that your position?
Absolutely. Democrats have the White House, the House, and the Senate. They don't want any of our involvement with all their radical spending, which we shouldn't be. And so if they want to raise the debt ceiling, they want to do it on their own. You know why? They've been very clear. They don't want to do this debt ceiling on their own because they know it's toxic. They say, oh, we want you to be part of our what we're doing here. You know, their budget in this deal, the $3.5, which is really $5.5 trillion, will take our debt to $45 trillion. Now let's look at what's happening in families right now with inflation. It's hurting our poorest families. It's hurting our families on fixed income. And the Democrats are causing all this with their spending, and they don't want to be responsible for it. They are responsible for what's going on.
And so do you think you'll keep, for example, you've got to get Senator Murkowski reelected, and I hope you do. I think she's a good, solid vote on 99% of the stuff that we vote on. Will she and any other Republican think about bolting and voting for it? Because it will hurt them. It will really hurt them if they vote for any Democratic
I don't think any of them are going to vote for it. We have a clean continuing resolution that McConnell and Richard Shelby put together that will deal with it. We're not going to do the debt ceiling. That's the Democratic responsibility. We'll keep the government open. We will help with the Afghan refugees, and we'll also help with the disaster relief for Louisiana. So ours is clean, all right? But the Democrats don't want to do it. I don't know if we'll even get a vote on it. So the Democrats might shut down government. I don't think they will, but they could decide to shut down government.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com. Trending now on America First with Sebastian Gorka.
Mark Milley admitted yesterday that for that pathetic pseudo-journalist Bob Woodward, for his new blockbuster dishing book of scandal, Mark Milley gave him hours of interviews. Hours? Sorry. How busy should the chairman of the Joint Chiefs be? Just curious. As the Taliban is ready to take back Afghanistan, these are interviews he gave this stinking year. This year. As the Taliban is rising, as China is building its military, as Iran is threatening us, as Russia is being ever more militaristic, you're sitting down for hours with an avowed, rabid Democrat, quote-unquote, journalist to give inside scoops on how you stood up to President Trump by undermining the chain of command that you by the Constitution are not a part of? What the hell are you doing? Maybe those hours could have been spent, I don't know, reading the Long War Journal by our friend Bill Roggio, where he predicted in March that the Taliban would be in control and Kabul would fall. Maybe you would better spend your time reading books like Cynical Theories, reading the works of Chris Rufo about what critical race theory really is and why it's racism and bigotry. But oh no, you had to be a politician.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe today at rumble.com.
I love getting letters about sponsors because I take it very seriously when I endorse something to you because my credibility is on the line. I actually didn't believe you could get $30 a month, unlimited text, unlimited talk, 6 gigabytes of data, and it'd be as good as Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile. Turns out it is. I got a second phone with them. You could keep your phone and your number, of course. But I wanted another phone, and I got one at a great rate. It's another thing that they can do with Pure Talk, get you great phones at great rates. So just do pound 250 on your current phone, say Dennis Prager, pound 250, get all the info, pound 250 and you'll see how much money, about $800 a year per family. And you get $50 off the first month just saying Dennis Prager. Pound 250, pound 250, say Dennis Prager. How a Racial Hoax is Killing America is the subtitle of the book by David Horowitz. I Can't Breathe is the title. The whole I Can't Breathe was a hoax. By the way, the book is up at DennisPrager.com, correct? David?
What?
I say, isn't it correct? The whole I Can't Breathe line.
Yeah, it's America. They can't breathe. You can't breathe if you challenge.
No, I'm sorry. Wait, forgive me. I made a mistake. He did say I can't breathe. I was talking about hands up, don't shoot. That was made up.
That was made up. It was invented by his Michael Brown had an accomplice in the strong arm robbery, and he's the guy who volunteered it. And they just accept if it's a criminal saying what you want him to say, you quote it like it's gospel. It's sad what's happened to this country. We're close to the end of our tether. I don't know if we can survive this. There isn't that much time. And these people are ruthless. This is right up your alley, Dennis. Did you see that Biden just appointed a graduate of Moscow University who was there on a Lenin scholarship? Who just put her in control of our currency system?
It's up both. It should be up the country's alley. It's nothing is shocking though. That's the tragedy. Nothing is shocking. Anyway, I want to make it clear what you do in this book is so important. I mean, the George Floyd thing was not racist. Listen, I know you know this. Obviously, you cited it in your book and on the show, and I've cited it. But I never actually played what Keith Ellison, again, Attorney General, black, leftist Attorney General of Minnesota, where I am right now, and this is what he said. What was it, 60 Minutes? What did he say it on?
60 Minutes, yeah.
60 Minutes. All right, here it goes. Here it goes.
Right after the trial.
Right after the trial.
Should have been.
I wouldn't call it that, because hate crimes are crimes where there's an explicit motive and of bias. We don't have any evidence that Derek Chauvin factored in George Floyd's race as he did what he did.
You could have charged him with a hate crime under Minnesota law, and you chose not to.
Could have, but we only charge those crimes that we had evidence that we could put in front of a jury to prove. If we'd have had a witness that told us that Derek Chauvin made a racial reference, we might have charged him with a hate crime. But I would have needed a witness to say that on the stand. We didn't have it, so we didn't do it.
Dennis, listening to this, I'm reminded of something that my mentor when I was a young leftist, Isaac Deutscher, told me. He said, David, you have to understand the problem with politics is that people have a hard time adding 2 and 2 and getting 4. So he's the chief prosecutor admitting that he has no evidence, not even a remark made in anger, that Derek Chauvin had any racial attitudes. Yet he prosecuted him for murder. Also without evidence. There was not, I don't recall during the trial one testimony that Derek Chauvin ever said he intended to kill George Floyd. And personally, I think ingesting 4 times the lethal dose of fentanyl will do it without a knee on the neck. And the knee wasn't, of course, on his jugular vein. It wasn't on his windpipe. It was on a blood vessel on the side of his neck, which would cause blood flow to stop to the brain and cause him to pass out. And it had been tried 247 times, has been used, that actual technique, by the Minneapolis police force, and nobody ever died until George Floyd. So, hoax isn't a strong enough word almost for these people. Let me just point out, didn't finish my thought about Oprah Winfrey, who's become a racist in her old age. She bought 26 billboards, one for every year of Breonna Taylor's life, called for the charging of the police officers. There's only one charge. You have a national lynch mob, which is what Black Lives Matter is. There's only one charge, which is murder. Here's the reality. And she implied in her statements that, as did everybody on the left, that Breonna Taylor was murdered in her home, in her bed, in her sleep. She wasn't murdered. She wasn't asleep. And she wasn't in bed. Breonna Taylor was an accomplice to a major drug dealer. There were 5 raids that night of the distribution centers for this drug dealer. And what it was dealing with drugs that are spreading death in the black community. That's what Breonna Taylor was up to. She allowed her mailbox to be used as part of his distribution center. She allowed her bank account to be used by this criminal to hide his criminal gains. And she had been doing this consistently for the last 3 years. She even rented a car for him in which a dead person showed up. And that wasn't enough of a warning to her. I mean, we know that people do stupid things as matters of the heart. But she had plenty of warning that this guy was a really bad guy and what he was doing was really bad for the black community. And yet she's been, when the cops appeared at the door, they knocked. They had a no-knock warrant, but they actually knocked and announced they were there. It was 12:30 in the morning. It's pitch black. And she and her boyfriend got out of bed, and the boyfriend fired his weapon at the police, wounding one of them. And, you know, the police, they have families they want to go home to. So they have this saying, it's pray and spray. In other words, you can't see anything. You're being fired at. You don't know how many weapons are aimed in your direction. So you pray and spray and hope.
Right, that's the Breonna Taylor story. We'll be back in a moment. The book, I Can't Breathe, it's up at DennisPrager.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Tesla was a genius. His most amazing discoveries thought to be written in a lost journal. Now, in the right hands, it could revolutionize the 21st century.
If you can stop an earthquake, doesn't that mean you could start one too?
That's why that notebook should never fall into the wrong hands.
Shall we stop this thing?
Save the universe!
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
I grew up poor, which is even worse than being poor.
We would have sandwiches with no meat.
My American dream entailed working hard and making $20,000 a year. But I surpassed that goal and became a corporate CEO.
We'll all be able to say, free at last, free at last.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Man, I miss my father, and I want him to be here with me, but he's not.
We all had something in common. A lot of us were miserable. We had no fathers in our lives.
This is how I began the life of crime. I desired to have a father who would tell me that what I did was wrong.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Judge Thomas, you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do.
I was under constant attack. You're not really black because you're not doing what we expect black people to do. This is the wrong black guy. He has to be destroyed.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com. Streaming on Salem Now.
The public
would be outraged if they knew the truth.
Why do you think our politicians are not on the sidewalk right now talking to you?
Don't have no respect.
The old wall randomly turns into a guardrail, followed by miles of open border.
Human trafficking gone.
That journey is extremely dangerous.
The 7-year-old girl died in the desert.
From the country of India.
A great pillar of the community was killed by a man who had been deported at least twice.
This little urn contains the ashes of my son. His dreams cut short forever.
We're so worried about other countries' problems, and we don't even focus on our own.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is why we're fighting for the soul of America.
You should be able to share ideas without fear of being fired from your job or shouted down.
You are not to be heard. This is one of the few things we have no precedent for in the United States.
You have the right to remain silent.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Hi there, everybody. Dennis Prager with David Horowitz. David Horowitz has a very important book out. It came out yesterday. I Can't Breathe, How a Racial Hoax is Killing America. The racial hoax is that George Floyd was killed as a result of racism. I assume that's the big one. And the whole Black Lives Matter movement rooted in a hoax. And it's all documented in his book. So we're by the way, David, I mention regularly, my listeners know this, about, as I say, every other week I describe an actual hoax of usually a student, black student at a college, scribbling or painting the N-word or having a noose or sending out hate mail as if he or she were a white supremacist. And it turns out in virtually every single case to be a black person, a black student that has done that. So that's another element of the hoax industry.
When I was listening to your spot for the search engine on PragerU, it reminded me of my pet campaign these days is defund the universities. PragerU is such a gift to this country. I can't believe all the wonderful videos that you guys have done. But, why is the government subsidizing racist universities that spread lies about our country? It doesn't make any sense.
That's right.
There's so much to be done, people.
That's exactly right. So talk to me for a moment about Black Lives Matter. And when was it started?
Over the Trayvon Martin case. And I'm actually a deviant on the I paid a heavy price. I've gotten more attacks for my position on Trayvon Martin than anything.
Yeah, I read it. Yeah.
But here's the thing. Zimmerman was not a police officer. He was a neighborhood watch person. His behavior after this case showed that he was a very troubled individual anyway. He was told by his dispatcher not to get out of his truck. He thought that Trayvon looked suspicious in a hoodie, in the wrong neighborhood. But he was told by his dispatcher, do not get out of your truck. Let the police handle this. And instead, he got out. He stalked Trayvon, who turned on him. They got into a fight. And when Zimmerman was losing, he shot Trayvon through the heart. I thought he should have gotten a stiff jail sentence for manslaughter. That's technically what manslaughter is. You don't go in intending to kill somebody. But when you do, that's manslaughter. I got this barrage. Everybody was so politically correct at the time. But that's where it started as a hashtag, Black Lives Matter. But these people have revealed themselves to be criminals. They make things up maliciously. They get people killed doing it. They get the criminals paid off. Breonna Taylor's family got $12 million for an alleged wrongful death suit. George Floyd's family, for raising a lifelong criminal, they got $27 million. The Democrat Party has a lot to answer for. All these cities where there have been eruptions have been 100% controlled by the Democrat Party. It's an anti-American racist party for whom whites can do no good and blacks can do no wrong. It's just so anti-American, everything that America has stood for over the last 200 years.
And it's all documented in this book, folks. That is the point. Tell me about, or tell my listeners about Assata Shakur.
Yeah, you would think if Black Lives Matter was a civil rights organization, its icon would be Martin Luther King. But of course, Black Lives Matter regards Martin Luther King as a racist, because he wanted people to be judged on their merits and not their skin color. If that doesn't tell you everything you need to know about Black Lives Matter, I don't know what does. But their icon is Assata Shakur. Assata Shakur is a demented human being, and they speak to her in these reverent terms, Mother, they pray to Mother Assata and so forth.
All right, you're going to tell us about it more because I want to promote the book. I Can't Breathe, How a Racial Hoax is Killing America. 1-8-PRAGER-776. The book is up at DennisPrager.com. Nerve Renew is one of the only products that I ever asked to advertise on the show. The story, as you may know by now, is very simple. If you have tingling, numbness, etc. in your feet or hands, or both, I guess, but the extremities get this. I had it in my feet much of my life. I finally got inserts that were specially made for my shoes. They worked, but then, of course, as soon as I take the insert out, my feet would tingle. Started taking Nerve Renew because I read about it on the internet. A year later, I threw away the inserts. I'm not wearing them now. I haven't worn them since then. If you have this tingling and numbness, give it a try. 2 weeks for free, 1 year money-back guarantee. Try NerveRenew.com.
Streaming on Salem Now.
We understand that a plane has crashed into...
The people who knock these buildings down will hear all of us soon.
Biggest and most costly manhunt in U.S. history.
United States killed Osama bin Laden.
There are reports surfacing that Al-Qaeda has placed a $50,000 US bounty on the heads of any U.S. Navy SEALs.
Nobody's going to survive that. There's nobody in that.
This is the single largest loss of life in Afghanistan in a single incident.
Most of them are U.S. Navy SEALs.
We discovered bullets in the bodies of the Navy SEALs. The military threw them away.
More likely than not, that supports a shootout on board.
Anybody out there, we have a fallen angel.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This is a story of how 1 million children were placed with local foster families. Parents from all walks of life share their stories of overcoming the one-child policy by taking in orphans. At a time where there's so much negativity and cynicism, here's proof that a single leap of faith can change the world.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The only time you can come to Christ when the Spirit of God flows.
You ever thought of going to seminary? Billy Graham.
Gloria a Dios, hermanos.
¿Quién está listo para ser transformado por el poder de su palabra?
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
The Democratic Party somehow has convinced black people that they're the good guys. Never mind the skanky history of the Democratic Party. That was a party of slavery. There is a whole big cottage industry for racism. If racism went away, a lot of people would be unemployed.
The mob during the Minneapolis riots following the death of George Floyd. A bunch of white thugs, frankly, burning down the city's traditional black and Asian business district.
They're racist. Everything's racist.
Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
This book is so important. I Can't Breathe: How a Racial Hoax is Killing America, by David Horowitz, the inimitable David Horowitz, up at DennisPrager.com. It was published yesterday. I've been reading it already. I have it in hardcover and I have it in Kindle. How's that, folks? And I bought the Kindle with my own family money. We had a family budget meeting, and we voted that we could afford it. I was happy about that. I'm serious. I'm not kidding about the budget meeting, but I am serious about buying the Kindle because I want to be able to copy and paste from your book. So you were talking about this Assata Shakur. Go ahead.
Assata Shakur, she stopped this car. She had no idea who was in it. No, I'm sorry. The New Jersey trooper, Werner Foster, stopped Assata Shakur's car.
When did that happen? What year?
I don't. It's a good 20, 30 years ago.
Okay, fine. Go ahead.
She was a fugitive from the law. She had been sprung out of jail by Susan Rosenberg and others from the Weather Underground. And they squirreled her off to Cuba, where she has resided in so-called exile ever since. And when Fidel Castro died, and they wrote this ridiculous letter, like some saint had died, to Fidel Castro, they mentioned the fact that he had protected her. But this is what she did. This trooper stopped her car, and he approached the car for a broken taillight, and she opened fire without warning and struck him. And he was lying on the ground. This is the father of 2 children who served in Vietnam. He was lying on the ground pleading for his life, and she executed him. This is the evil person that is the icon for Black Lives Matter, which tells you why they can leave such a path of destruction and so many deaths, mainly of black people in their wake, and not give a damn. And of course, it's being funded by corporate America and the Democrat Party. That's who's supporting Black Lives Matter. So
They must. What do you think they were given in money? $100 million, $50 million? How much total do you think they've been given?
Well, there's various. Obviously they're not opening their books, as it were, and the media is not demanding, or the Democrat Party or the Treasury Department are not demanding that they reveal what their funds are. I mean, these are criminals who, like the looters and rioters, are criminals without consequence. Well, there's real consequences for real people, but none in terms of the law. We don't have, and it's so amazing to me that I was so moved the other day when Tucker Carlson had on this white-haired naval officer who had served in, I can't remember, it was Vietnam or World War II for that matter, and they had arrested him. He wasn't even in the Capitol on January 6th, but he... I watched it. It's astonishing. It's an amazingly tragic moment.
Yes, solitary confinement for 7 weeks.
Yeah, all these people are in solitary confinement.
We're moving toward a police state.
Yeah, they're fascists. Why are Republicans calling them progressives? I understand why they call themselves progressives. It sounds good. But what's progressive about, a rerun of Hitler Germany or Stalin's Russia, which is what these people are about, for crying out to you. Anyway, they're very sad what's happened. I devote the end of the book. I leave the first part of the book is about each one of these cases, and I show that they are pathological liars in terms of every case where they claim some black was innocent and was, quote, murdered, unquote, by police. And to me, that's the power of the book, when you see what they've actually done.
That's right. That's right.
You know who these people are.
Right,
So
like you related about Breonna Taylor. Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah,
and you're right about calling Oprah Winfrey becoming a racist. There's no question about. She's a hate monger. She's become a hate monger.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. It's exactly right. All right, listen. You're once again doing this country a service. So the book is called "I Can't Breathe: How a Racial Hoax is Killing America." It's the sort of book I want to memorize. It's just fact after fact, but it's all interestingly written. It's up at DennisPrager.com. You just keep writing, David Horowitz. We need you. Okay. Whoops. All right. I'm sure he was just about to respond, but I got to make I need to tell you. You want to fight back at what's happening, you got to fight, my friends. You can't do nothing. You can't do nothing. Most good people do nothing, and then we lose the battle to evil. One way is to support the good guys. Alliance Defending Freedom, these are the people who supply lawyers at no cost to people fighting up to the Supreme Court for liberty in this country. There's a banner for ADF up at DennisPrager.com. Just click it and donate. They'd like $100. You give more, great. Give less, great. That's what they're asking for. Or just call 855-649-2020. 855-649-2020. They're you'll be proud of yourself. You're in the battle when you help the good guys. Again, up at DennisPrager.com, the ADF banner, and David Horowitz's book. Return in a moment.
Streaming on Salem Now.
Fiance? No, I can't be your fiance.
You're gonna go. You're gonna be my fiance, and you're gonna be the most amazing, fascinating, most successful man ever. We're only gonna be there for a few hours, eat dinner, and I promise we'll have the best breakup of all time.
My baby, my princess. Oh, yeah.
Stream on your phone, tablet, or TV. Look for Salem Now in the App Store or go to salemnow.com.
Trending now on The Hugh Hewitt Show.
The message is very simple. Democrats broke it. They bought it. They have to fix it. Can the Republicans stay on message?
I hope so. It's going to require a lot of discipline, but we have to do that. I mean, we have offered numerous bipartisan outreaches to the Speaker and her team. We should have done this whole process through regular order, gone committee by committee, passed 12 separate appropriations bills. But the fact is, as I said before, the squad is driving the train, and everything is being sacrificed to the altar of the Bernie Sanders socialist spending spree. I mean, I think Pelosi, this is her last hurrah, and she wants to go out with a bang, and she wants to cement her legacy, and so she's going to try and jam through as much as possible. And I think there's a lot of Democrats right now who are, quite frankly, afraid of all of the energy coming from the far left. And let's hope that some Democrats in the Senate, particularly Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, stand their ground. But Republicans need to be disciplined. This is no time for us to be complicit in their games. We need to stand up for the American people, and particularly in light of all the other crises and manifest failures we're seeing from the Biden administration, whether it's the complete absence of security on the southern border. We have an out-of-control crisis on the southern border, whether it's the ongoing failures of U.S. foreign policy owing to our surrender in Afghanistan, and all of the lies, quite frankly, that the president told at the UN General Assembly yesterday. We need to be disciplined right now because the Democrats from the White House and certainly Democrats in Congress are simply not operating in a way that has the best interest of the American people in mind.
Keep up with what's trending. Subscribe on YouTube and at rumble.com.
Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager with you. So let's see here. Is this accurate here? Just breaking news. Los Angeles City Council has passed a vaccine mandate requiring people to show proof of full COVID-19 vaccination before entering indoor restaurants, bars, gyms, shopping centers, entertainment venues, and personal care establishments. So the trick here is to have massive disobedience. That is the only way to have contempt. This is a police state. The country is moving toward police state. Americans buy it because a lot of Americans, half don't, because safety. So there's always a noble reason for a police state. There's never been a police state created that didn't do it in the name of something that a lot of people subscribe to. Security, safety, wartime, whatever it might be. Some enemy, real or imagined. Los Angeles City Council is exercising power. There is a hatred of the unvaccinated, and the hatred has nothing to do with people getting sick. Have they been killing people? The argument, there isn't even an argument that they're killing people. The argument is that they're dying and therefore filling beds. So, and even that is specious. But it's hatred of people who are dissenting. That's all it is about. You are not listening to us in the Los Angeles City Council. Drop dead. And we will make life as miserable as possible for you. And the trick is for restaurants, gyms, shopping centers, entertainment venues, personal care establishments, not to ask for it. Okay, if enough places do it, what are they going to do? Fine everybody? That's the trick. That's what they're doing in New York City with restaurants. Most restaurants, as I am told, they either have no question, people show them their phone. They show them, some nothing, no certificate. They just show them their phone. Go right ahead, go in. The scummy people on the Los Angeles City Council. Like New York City, it's part of my theory that big cities produce worse people. There's no question in my mind about it. I've always believed it. There are finer people who live in smaller cities. It's just a fact. There are some decent people in big cities, obviously, and there are some lousy people in smaller cities. But as a rule, the hatred of liberty, all bad ideas, almost all germinate from big cities. Hitler learned his Jew hatred in Vienna. Marx spent his entire life in London. These guys weren't in small towns. Los Angeles has become a cesspool. Truly. I moved to a wonderful city in 1976. It's a cesspool today because the left has taken over. Whatever it touches, it ruins. Okay, from Minneapolis, you can watch it at salemnow.com, my event tonight.